Então, a gente começa o nosso ditado em 3, 2, 1. Corrigindo, ficou o seguinte: transmissões telegráficas do Código Internacional Morse com interrupção de portadora com as seguintes características básicas. Ponto. Papa Tango, ok? Lembra? Ok? Papa Tango, ponto. Tem uma outra forma de ponto também, que é isso aqui, ó. Também ponto, traço, ponto, traço, ponto, traço. Ou sinal curto, um longo, um curto, longo, um curto, um longo, ok? Também é ponto final. Mas, como ele está usando papatango, então fica aí o ponto nessa condição, ok? Então, dando mais uma lida, ficou o seguinte: transmissões telegráficas do Código Internacional Morse com interrupção de portadora com as seguintes características básicas. Ponto.
Agora são 5 horas, 7 minutos. A gente cumprimenta os amigos chegarem na frequência. O amigo Clóvis, amigo Rafael, demais corujas, rádio frequência, internet. Grande abraço a todos. E quanto ao termo, legal, não conhecia não. Tá bom, Clóvis? Mais uma que a gente aprende, né? E a gente está sempre aprendendo, né? Todo dia, em várias áreas, a gente vai sabendo uma coisinha nova aqui e ali. Bacana, mais uma. E lembrando, os amigos, sábado finaliza o nosso curso, ok? Então, quem pretende fazer classe B, vai se preparando. Segunda-feira, dia 2, iniciando mais um curso. Tranquilo? Serão 4 meses de aulas, janeiro, fevereiro, março e abril. Serão 7 turmas. E lembrando, uma turma, primeira edição, deficientes visuais, e uma segunda turma, segunda edição, também deficientes visuais, ok? As demais turmas, normal, né? Para o pessoal aí que enxerga numa boa, sem problemas. E vamos em frente. Oportunidade com bom dia.
Like, I contacted ICOM's customer service, spoke to a polite and professional gentleman there, but I could hear it in his voice, he didn't believe me. He thought it was a birdie, some RF issues, something else, and he had told me that there's been no reported problems with the 7610. I almost had to beg him to look at the video, and he told me to send it to ICOM's tech department in electronic form, and I filled out the form on their site. That was over a week ago, and I've heard no reply. All I got was the computer-generated automatic response letting me know they'd get back to me within 2 days. I've heard nothing, not even a basic, hey, thanks for the email, we're checking into this, not even faking it. I mean, I've heard nothing back, and that to me is an extreme dislike. I'd like to see better customer service than that. That wraps up my list of more likes and dislikes of the ICOM IC7610. Now, you might get the idea that maybe I'm hating on this radio, and nothing could be further from the truth. I enjoy this radio a lot, and I hope to have it for many, many years. However, I do want to point out there's some things that I think can be corrected. And bear in mind, it's not 1987 anymore. With these software-defined radios, these manufacturers can fix these things and make adjustments via firmware. And they can't fix what they don't know about, so here you go. Now, speaking of talking about the radio, there's 2 other videos I want to mention. You've heard me talk about Jared, VK3 Bravo Lima, and his channel, Rate My Radio. He's got a ton of videos on the ICOM 7610, and I encourage you to go to his channel. It's found in the link below. I also found another great review on this radio from Alpha Bravo 5 November.
Hello everyone, today's review is about the ICOM IC7610, which is an HF transceiver covering from 6 to 160 meter. And this radio has actually two independent receivers. And it's a new technology radio using the SDR technology, which is software-defined radio. And it offers a very, very good performance. And I consider this radio a high-end radio because of the dual receivers, but also because of its performance, because of SDR. But its price point is more in the middle range, so I think it's affordable. So if you're serious about HF, a contester, a DXer, and you want something that has dual receiver, you want great performance, you want an SDR radio with the state-of-the-art, the new technology, but you don't want to get too much into computers, you want something that works out of the box, that operates like a standard radio or a traditional radio, well, this radio is probably your best buy right now, okay? This offers you all that. It's simple. It's a traditional box radio. It's easy to operate. It's very intuitive. You actually don't even need to open a manual to operate this radio. If you own a 7300 or another ICOM radio in the past, this radio will be very easy to operate. I also operate that radio right out of the box when I receive it. And I did look for a few things, and then I was able to get around very, very easy. I also read the manual and went through all the feature of this radio, and that's what I'm going to show you today. We will going to go through all the buttons from left to right, like I usually do with high-end radio. And we will going to go from left to right, cover all the buttons and the features, and try to show you what this radio can do. Right now, there's not a lot of propagation, okay? So it varies, and depending when I'm available to film, you know, I don't always get the best propagation while I'm doing my videos. So I will try, okay, that can be used for different things. The first thing is to use a USB stick to save the screen capture, the recording you would like, and the config, your setup. You can also save your setup. You can use it to update the firmware as well. You can also use the SD card. You can see I have one in because the light is blue here. Okay, that's an indicator showing that the SD card is active. When you use an SD card, you free up your two USB port that you have in the front. So I prefer this, and you know, it's flush with the radio, so you don't, you know, it doesn't stick out as a USB stick will do. Here I have a dongle that is used for a mouse and a keyboard. It uses the same dongle. Okay, so the mouse is only for the waterfall. Okay, as you can see here, and the keyboard can be used to send the pre-programmed voice recording for CQ, okay, let's say, and also some keyer memory for CW that you can use if you program correctly in the radio. You can use from F1 to F8 to actually recall those memory, voice, and keyer depending on the mode. You can also use the keyboard to do RTTY and to do PSK directly on the radio, which is great. The second USB port is used by the remote encoder that I have here. This is optional, which is the RC28. When you plug this into the 7610, automatically you can use the VFO to control the sub-VFO, which is great. It's like adding button to your radio. But also, if you have the remote software that ICOM produce, which is the RSBA1 version 2, you can actually plug that on a computer where is the software, and you can control the radio. You can even PTT with the thing, okay? You have the VFO, and you can use remotely to with your PC to have a really feeling of a radio. So this has two functions in the shack. It serves as a sub VFO, and you can also use it to do remote. Plus, the ICOM IC7610 has a remote server integrated to it. You don't need to leave a PC on in your shack to be able to do remote operation, as it is automatically in the radio. It has a LAN interface, and you connect the internet directly to the radio, which is very, very great. You have an 8-pin microphone, okay, standard round microphone. You have two VFO, so there is two receivers into that radio, so you have two VFO volume, okay, two squelch and RF gain. So you have the main and the sub VFO volume. If you push on that button, it will go to mute, okay, and it will be amber, the color, and then green, it's receiving, you see, mute. Well, that's very useful. So you have the same thing on the sub VFO. Here you have the squelch. If you go on your right, you can see the squelch activated because the light is turning off, okay? There's a squelch, and on the other side, there's the RF gain. This is an SDR, so the RF gain, okay, it's actually very useful, and you have a noisy band like 80 meters, but the signal is strong, you can actually drop it down, okay? And it will actually lower the noise, and then you will have just the big signal, and it's just great, okay? It's, listen to this. This is very, very good, okay? And it's very, very useful as well to reduce the noise in your shack. So I use that pretty much. You have the same thing on the sub VFO. You can actually change that config, you know, right squelch and left the RF gain, but I leave it like this. This is the default, and I like it that way. Here you have the noise blanker. You activate, the light turns on. Here you have the noise reductor, same thing. If you do a long push, you can actually adjust the level, the depth, and the width, okay, directly here by using this knob, okay, which is the multifunction knob. And you have the same thing for the level of the noise reductor, okay. Here you have on the screen, you have a few buttons here, okay, so you can select the antenna. You have a preamp. The first one is 12 dB. The second one is 20. And then you have the attenuation, 3 levels, 6, 12, and 18 dB. You have the IP plus that you can turn on. This will get a better IMD and will also reduce interference, okay? You also have the AGC that you can switch between slow, mid, and fast. If you do a long push, okay, you can actually customize those for each mode, which is great. A lot of people like doing that. And when it's on in this menu, okay, let's say turn this on, you see the blue LED on the right, okay? This is an indicator showing you that it's on. Then you have your Vox and your compressor. If you go in CW, then you will have your full break-in, or semi break-in or off, okay, that you can activate. So you will have different menu depending on the mode you are using. The touchscreen is full touchscreen. You can switch VFO from A and B doing this, okay? And you can switch mode doing this. That's very easy, okay? You can switch between LSB and USB, just pressing twice the SSB, okay? If you click here, you can actually change the band. There you go. You can actually enter a direct frequency as well. You can do exactly the same on the other side. You have an arrow here. When it's on, it will, whoops, let's go on the main. When it's on, it will change, okay? But not the two last digits. If you wanted to leave it at 0, this is faster to QSY. But if you click on it, you will have the more fine VFO, okay? I prefer to use it like this. And here you have the meter, and then you change the meter. Here you have the voltage, okay? When you transmit, current, power, SWR, ALC, compressor, okay? Let's put it in SWR. As you can see, it changed on the other side as well at the same time, okay? If you go at the bottom, you have the waterfall, okay? And you can actually, let's try find a signal. The bands are dead, okay? We can actually go into, no, it's worse, okay. So let's stay here. Okay, hold on a second. Let's go on this button. Okay, now we have a signal. Okay, so this is the spectrum. You can actually expand it, have it wider. Okay, and you in the menu below you have two menu 1 and 2. Okay, that is for the spectrum and waterfall. You can adjust the span, so it starts at 5K width. Hold on a second. So minus 2.5 to plus 2.5, and then you can adjust. I prefer to have it 100, but you can go up to 1 meg wide. I go too fast. There you go. So you can have 1 meg wide if you'd like. Okay, I prefer to have it around 100. Okay, so we'll see most of the band, and that's the span. You can hold it like this. Okay, you can change. This is center, but you can also have it fixed. Okay, this is easier to go and get a signal. Okay, and you can set up the edge for the fix. Okay, then you have it like this. Let's go. You see, it's when you change, when in center mode, it's the waterfall and the spectrum that change. Okay, not only the cursor. So if you go in fixed mode, then it's easier to get the signal you want. Okay, and then back here. You have the main and sub. You can also have the sub waterfall spectrum, and you can have both at the same time, and you can switch, you know, the one you would like, and then you have both, and that is very cool. Let me show you something. Okay, let's say you like to monitor, okay, the one signal and you want to see it zoom, but you also want to see the band at the same time. So there's a feature that I use for that. Okay, maybe it's a trick, maybe it's not meant to be used like this, but I really like it. Okay, so I adjust the span here to be around 5. Okay, and I'll get on that signal. Hold on. Okay, I will get this signal. Where is it? I'm gonna have to increase the span. Let's get the signal. Let's get this signal here. Okay, now it's started without the volume. Okay, so now we have the signal. Okay, so let's go into the menu and activate tracking. Okay, now you will have both on the same frequency, and if you change the frequency, both are changing. Okay, so let's do something. Let's change the span here to have around 5K and here to have 100. Okay, so I can see at the same time, okay, I can see both. I can see the signal and I can see the signal there. So let's go to another signal. Band condition are not very good. Okay, let's go to this signal. So as you can see, I can see both signal at the same time, the zoom one and the band. So that is very, very useful if you use it. Well, I use it like this, so I can see the band and I can see the station signal. Okay, that's very good. If you go into expand and you want to see the waterfall on each side by side, when you're in dual mode, this is also very cool. Okay, so you can have a range like this. You can also...
Tadeu, bom dia, grande abraço. Tudo em paz, tranquilo, Tadeu? E o Claudinho tá aí? Ô, Claudinho, liga o rádio, hein? Faz favor de ligar o rádio aí. Dá um abraço aí no Cláudio, tá bom, Tadeu? Um ótimo dia, um ótimo fim de ano, aí tá chegando, né? Dia 29, 2022, tá indo embora. Grande abraço. E qualquer coisa, entra por aí, tá bom, Claudinho? PY2CY, PY2EXU.
Okay, similar as you have in the menu here, the scope. Okay, so that's the M scope button. Then you have the MP right. This is very useful if you want a temporary memory. Let's say there's a QSO there, you like it, but you want to go see on another frequency if your friends are there. Well, you can recall this frequency by just MP, okay, memo pad right, okay, and then If you change and you want to go back, and you do a memo pad read, and you will be back. If you do a long push, you will see the memory that that you did. Okay, so this is very cool. Now you can get out of there like this. You can also use exit every time to exit any screen. Okay. And then you have the auto tune that's in CW. So you get a CW signal. And if you want to be sure that you're right on frequency, you click auto tune. It will print auto tune and it will actually tune the signal directly. Okay. Then you have the quick menu here. So you have the VFO and memory and that you can work with here. You also have the meter select, but you can do it in the screen directly. Okay, as I shown before. You also have the drive gain that can be adjusted, and this here you can actually activate it by pushing the multi button right here. Okay, so I'll show you in a moment. Then you have the exit, okay, that can be used to exit any menu. Then you can record. You can record a file. You can see it's recording on the SD card. And then you can stop the record, okay, and you can play as well. And you can go into the menu here, have the record, play file, and look at your file and have it play back, okay. So there you go. This is all saved on the SD card. Go back here. Okay. So this covers pretty much the button in the bottom. So let's go to the right. Then you have the multi button, okay. So if you click on it, then you can click here, adjust the power, adjust the mic gain. You have Digi Select. Digi Select, what it does, it actually, you know, when you change band in an HF, you will hear a relay changing band because it's the band pass filter. When Digi Cell, what it does, it's a pre-selector that it's narrower than the band. So you can hear the click, okay? Listen to this. Okay, so you can see that this is the pre-selector. It will give you a better selectivity. It will also reduce interference for strong station, okay, from strong station. So this is cool. And then you have the notch. The notch, you can add auto notch, so you can actually eliminate somebody's tuning on the frequency, okay? And then you have the manual notch, and you can change between narrow, wide, and mid. The other day I was listening to a station, there was a birdie, okay, into his modulation, and I was able to get rid of the birdie going in narrow and manual notch and doing like this until I got rid of it, okay? So using this knob to adjust, that was very cool, okay? Then you can turn it off. Here you have your monitor and your volume. You can turn on and adjust your volume. So that is pretty straightforward. Here's you have your split, okay? And when you work in split, you can actually, okay, I'm still in tracking mode, hold on, okay? Now, when you work in split, you can actually monitor the other frequency, okay, where you transmit by just pushing air to see if someone's calling you, okay? That's another useful to have a dual waterfall like this.
Vamos falar aqui sobre operação remota, operação automática também, né? Na legislação fala aqui, ó, operação automática ou remota. Bom, para quem não sabe, né, tanto na primeira abordagem que eles falam de operação automática, ou no parágrafo único do artigo 6º, né, que já fala aqui de conexão remota, ok? Só uma explicação. Então, o que seria uma conexão remota? Uma operação automática. Você até pode, né, estar na estação, mas normalmente a operação remota subentende que você está a uma certa distância, pode ser um quarteirão da sua casa, como você pode estar do outro lado do planeta, ok? É que você está no Japão, você vai ter uma interface, né, conectada aí aos equipamentos. Você pode se valer também da internet das coisas, né, para fazer um rotor ligar, para fazer esse rotor funcionar, para fazer esse rotor girar para um lado, para o outro, né, ligar lá alguns equipamentos a mais, além do rádio, ok? E tudo isso pela internet e longe, né? Então isso seria uma operação remota, ok? Você tem que ter alguns acessórios, né? Como eu falei, uma interface, e mais algumas possibilidades do próprio rádio, né? De ter essa conexão com a interface, ok? Depois com a internet e você partir para uma operação automática ou remota, tranquilo? Então, sobre a operação remota, tem um artigo aqui que dá alguns limites para o radioamador, ok? No nosso caso aqui, Brasil, né? Como que a lei entende a operação remota? Em relação à potência, ok? Até que potência você pode usar, né, numa operação remota. Quer dizer, a sua estação vai estar num limite de potência, ok? Qual potência? A gente vai ver agora, olha lá. O artigo 6º fala o seguinte: a potência média na saída do transmissor de uma estação terrestre de operação automática do serviço de radioamador deve estar limitada a 100 watts na fração de tempo que o sistema permanece ativo. Entre parênteses, está aqui, ó, duty cycle, observados os limites específicos estabelecidos no artigo 5º. Tá? Então, sobre a operação remota, é isso que eu estava falando, né? Você pode operar de longe na sua estação ou operação terrestre automática, né? Essa designação terrestre, de repente é um satélite, né? Pode ter uma transmissão do espaço, por que não, né? Então, aqui o artigo é bem diretivo, né? Potência média na saída de um transmissor de estação terrestre, ok? Tem que estar na terra, tranquilo? De operação automática do serviço de radioamador deve estar limitado a 100 watts, tá bom? Quando o sistema estiver ativo, duty cycle. Esse duty cycle subentende potência máxima aí do equipamento no estágio final de RF com especificação de potência RMS, ok? Ou seja, 100 watts no estágio final de RF, potência real, ok? Potência efetiva, 100 watts, tranquilo? Tá, não é pico, não é PP, não é IHF, é outro tipo de medição, né, que não seja aquela real, ok? Então, 100 watts reais, 100 watts RMS, tranquilo? Não mais do que 100 watts, ok? Observados os limites específicos estabelecidos no artigo 5º.
Bom, a gente vai dar intervalo. Hoje lendo o artigo 6º, resolução 697/2018. Você pega lá no site da Anatel, ok? Lembrando os amigos que em breve estará chegando uma feirinha nova aqui em São Paulo, tá bom? Vai ser na zona sul de São Paulo, na região de Santo Amaro, e assim que tiver tudo certo, o pessoal me confirma e eu passo para os amigos, ok? Quando iniciará, né, localização, os horários, tranquilo? Mas é uma boa notícia, né? Mais uma feirinha, mais um ponto de encontro dos radioamadores. E oportunidade com um bom dia.
Access from there, you have the antenna, and you can configure, let's say, an RX antenna, let's say for 40 meter, you're able to configure it for that band, and you can actually customize the use of your antenna using this feature. You have the digicell, the notch, the monitor, and the tracking that you can use here. We showed everything that I have here, okay, with the manual and everything. Here you have the set, okay? The set is to configure the radio. So this is the menu. So you have the tone control. In transmit, let's say in SSB, you're able to transmit in wide at 2.8K. I wish it was 3.6K, but it's very good, okay? I get very good report of my audio when I'm working with this radio. I get very good comments, and there's no parametric EQ in this radio. There's only bass treble, but it's good enough, okay? You can't scrap your audio. The only thing people will tell you, it's too bassy, or it's not enough bass or treble, okay? So otherwise, it's very easy to adjust, and you get great audio straight out of the box, okay? It's simple, it works, and it's great. I get very good comments about my audio. So this is where you set it up. You can set it up by mode. You can also do a setup in RX for you if you'd like. You have some function. There's a lot of things you can control here, but we won't go through everything, okay? But you can control, you see where to store your screen capture and everything, because you can configure the screen capture using the keyboard print screen. You can see it's on, so I can configure that. So that's pretty cool. Okay. Here you have the connector, and there you can configure your a few different things. Here you have the USB dial. This is the RC28. You can actually, by default, it's push to toggle, but it's locked. Okay, so the PTT is always on. And here you can change it to hold to transmit, so the PTT will only transmit while you're pushing the button. Okay, so this is better. You can have a few configuration there as well. As I mentioned, there's a LAN interface into this radio, so it has an IP address. It's here that you set up the network control for remote access with the port and the username and password to use this radio remotely using the ICOM software. Here you have the display. You can configure your call, so when you boot, it will have your display. Okay, display language is only two, English and Japanese. You can change the resolution, and you need to activate the external display on, okay, to be able to have an external monitor. And remember, it needs an adapter. It's a DVI-D for digital, DVI-digital. Okay, for D for digital, sorry. And to be able to use, I use an HDMI cable with an adapter, okay, to go into the external monitor. Okay, then you have other different things. You can configure fonts and stuff like that. For the time, you can actually use the internet with the NTP function when it's on, okay? And what you do is you push here and it will synchronize, okay? But first you need to set up your UTC, okay? And you can have both clock on. What it will show, depending of the screen that you choose, it will show you UTC and the local time right above, okay? Let's go back here. You have the SD card. You can load and save setting. You can actually format the card, screen capture view. You can actually upgrade the firmware if you follow the instruction. Okay, be very careful with that. Make sure you don't lose power while doing this. And you can unmount the SD card to remove it if the radio is on. The same thing, you have all the same for the USB stick if you want to use that. And in other, the main thing is the reset, partial, and all reset. So this covered pretty much this radio and of the IC7610. This concludes this video. I hope you did enjoy. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe. Your support is very, very important to me. Okay, it's just giving me the fuel to continue to do complex video like today. This takes a lot of time learning a radio. I know it's part of the fun too, okay? But doing the video, you don't know how much take I had to make, you know, to get what I wanted.
Bob Nagy here again, AB5N with another review. Here we go again. And today is a really exciting review. It's going to be the ICOM 7610 versus the FTDX 101D head-to-head all the way down the line. Now these rigs are direct competitors. The TS890 from Kenwood is not an SDR. I'm not going to have it in this competition, but these are radios that are in a similar price class and will become closer in price as the Yaesu starts to drop down, as the ICOM did over the course of its first year and a half or so. And these are different approaches with SDRs. The ICOM is a direct sampler, as where the Yaesu is a mixer. It's a slightly older technology idea, but it lands up in a great radio. And of course, it's the newer radio. Now, nobody is going to do this head-to-head competition. Dealers are not going to do this. They have stock of both these radios. They don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. How many guys are going to buy both these radios and have them in the shack at the same time? They're very similar radios. But what I'm doing here is I'm going to do this video so that it reduces your risk when you go and buy the radio. You pick which one you want to get, maybe based on this review, and you want to be thrilled with the radio. You want to be sure about that purchase, because what I'm doing here is one of these radios will be sold. I don't know which one it's going to be. And I'm not going to crown one of these radios the ultimate king radio, because really it's a matter of personal preference and brand preference and other things, your operating style, that I hope that this video will help illuminate and, make you feel you're clear about knowing which one of these radios really suits you. We're going to have a comparison apples to apples, head to head, down the line on the features, noise reduction, noise blanker, and things like that. Now, I don't know how long this video is going to take to do. Imagine about a half hour, and I hope it's worth your time. Rules of the road for those of you not familiar with SDR or digital technology in general. More bits is better dynamic range in your receiver, period. And technically, theoretically, direct sampling is the best way to go, but the chips that can do that are extremely expensive. Now, a mixer SDR, which is the slightly older technology, can also perform very well. 16 to 18-bit systems, which is what we're looking at here, give you over 100 dB dynamic range in the receiver, which is sort of the really point where we want to be. IP3, that old specification for receivers, we've got 30, we've got 40 dB. IP3, that rating does not apply to an SDR, so that's why we're seeing the different ratings now. And all of our experiences in the receive end of this are limited by local noise and other people's transmit IMD products. These are really the bottom line limiters to our ultimate experience, unless you live 40 miles out in the country and there's nothing around you. And let's quickly talk about the different specs you're seeing now on these SDR radios. First is 2 kilohertz RMDR. That's reciprocal mixing dynamic range. So at a given 2 kilohertz offset from your receive frequency, how loud does a competing signal need to be to raise your audio by 3 dB? And this is mainly a function of LO purity. And the better this number is, the better the spec. 2 kilohertz BDR, that's a blocking dynamic range, also measured at 2 kilohertz off. So how loud does that nearby signal need to be to reduce your desired signal by 1 dB, to reduce your receiver sensitivity? And the last, which is very important, IMDR, intermodulation dynamic range. Multiple strong signals outside your receive passband mix to create phantom signals inside your passband. And the more resistant the receiver is to this, the better. Over 100 dB is a good thing. So first, let's look at these radios' ergonomics. How well are they laid out to make them comfortable to operate? First impression on the 7610 is that it's well laid out and that the piano black finish makes it look sort of modern and elegant. Also, the volume being on the left, tuning dial on the right is perfect for left and right hand operation. First impression on the 101D is, wow, fancy. Makes you want to get closer and see what all the little buttons do. Has a very modern look to it, and construction build quality is very nice. Now on the ICOM, it has less buttons and more stuff in the menus. Is it really a difficulty that you need to think about? Well, that's up for you to judge. But the thing I did notice is that the volume controls being on the left and the tuning dial on the right made it much easier for me to lift my left arm up and adjust the volume and do the tuning with my right hand. The 101D has a lot more buttons and makes a lot more stuff easy to get to, but its volume knob is down near the bottom off to the 8 o'clock position on the main tuning dial. And for a right-hander, I'm tuning with the dial and then I reach under there, and it's a little difficult to do. Now, the main tuning knob on the 101D is more massive than on the ICOM and has a very high-quality feel to it. The second and outer tuning dial is machined metal, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's assignable to different functions. And although the volume knobs on the ICOM are positioned better, they have a little slop in them. In other words, you can turn them a little bit before they actually engage. The ICOM's lighter knob has an independently movable finger indent, and it also spins easily to move you around the band quick. The 101D's menuing layout is based on their radios previous to this, and is logically laid out and fairly easy to navigate. The 7610 menuing system was designed for their SDR radios. It has very large buttons, it's intuitively laid out, and it's very extensive. Even on the loosest setting, the heavier Yaesu tuning knob just doesn't spin quite as freely, and the finger indent doesn't work as well. Probably my biggest peeve with the 7610 is it takes 4 button pushes to switch between memories and VFO. And the Yaesu is just a single button push, which is the way it should be. The reason that this is really not an issue is that on both radios, in memory mode, you can tune around. To change the tuning rate of the main dial on the 7610, you literally touch the frequency display up here. You'll see a little arrow right above the 8. Once you go to the fine digits resolution, if you hold your finger on there, you can take off the single digit, single hertz number, and that'll mean it goes by tens. Want to go down to 1, then you hold it on, you get all 3 digits. As well, the ICOM has its famous progressive tuning rate. So the faster you tune the main tuning knob, the ratio starts getting bigger and bigger. And then as you slow down, it goes back to the more fine resolution. And that's a wonderful feature. On the 101D, you have a couple of ways of changing the tuning rate. First is the fast button over here, and then the fine tuning button, which brings the tuning rate down to 1 hertz. As well, in the menu, there's adjustments for the revolution of the knob per kilohertz movement. I did want to mention for blind operators that the ICOM has speech, and the Yaesu does not come with that. The 101 has 2 complete sets of your DSP filtering here, noise blanker, noise reduction, notch, contour, automatic peaking filter, and the stuff that's labeled blue corresponds to the sub-receiver, sub-unit, and the white stuff corresponds to the main primary. That's like the TS990S. On the 7610, it's not difficult to navigate between the main and sub-receivers. You just touch them to make them active. The transmit's on the left right now, and then there are 2 buttons that allow you to turn on dual watch or turn on your split function so you can do your transmit on one frequency and then receive on the other. On the 101D, there are buttons. Easy. Receive left side, receive right side, transmit. You can just select which one you want, and you get a main sub swapper in the middle. Now, around the tuning dials, you have some commonly used buttons in a sort of raised area. It's nice looking. You have your VC on and off and your VC tune, so you can tune that across your passband. Your custom button you can set to anything or a number of selections. I have it set to output power adjust. A main sub selector, you have fine tuning, so you can bring it down to 1 hertz resolution on the tuning. Your quick memory button for 10 quick memories you want to put in there, and your clarifier for the RIT and XIT. Let's take a look at the I/O on the rear of these radios. On the 7610, you have 2 antenna connectors, not 3, but on the bottom left, notice that we have 4 BNCs. We have a receive antenna loop through, and we have a transverter output, as well as a 10 megahertz reference in for using a GPSDO. It also has 2 USB connectors. Pretty much everything I want to do, I've got connectors for here. On the 101D, we see 3 antenna connectors, and that's absolutely an advantage. Notice that you've got receive out and IF out on the main and subs with RCA connectors. The rest of the connections are fairly similar, except that we do have an RS-232 connector on the top right, which is a DB9 and is sort of a retro connector, connects with some of the older equipment. Generally, more I/O is better. Because the 7610 has the built-in remote control network server, it has a lot of stuff involved in setting that up on the networking menu over here. It's really quite extensive and well implemented. As I mentioned, the ICOM has a provision for putting in an external 10 megahertz GPS-locked clock. You just turn it on, let it rock. I checked the Yaesu against it, though, and it was absolutely frequency accurate and stable without using an external clock. Now, both of these radios have internal sound cards, so it's one cable, set it up, and you're done. But I do want to warn you that the Yaesu uses a CP210X chipset, and it's important to get those drivers directly from Yaesu. Ah, the beautiful displays. Let's first take a look at the 2-dimensional display on the 7610, which is what it has. I've got it set up with a nice green fill here and purple peaking, but if I turn off the averaging, which is the way I normally have it, you'll see that the response is much faster. Let's make it a little larger, and that's more similar to the Yaesu. I prefer it with the averaging on. The 2D display on the Yaesu at about the same span looks quite similar with the averaging turned off on the ICOM. The vertical level display is slightly higher on the Yaesu for any given signal level than the ICOM. Now, the 3D display is really a personal preference thing. I've heard guys say they grew into it and they really started loving it, but because of the limited amount of colors that you can choose from, I was never able to find a combination that really gave me more information than a 2D display. The display on the Yaesu seemed to be ever slightly more sensitive than the ICOM, but because of the averaging on the ICOM, there was never a time where I could discern a very, very low signal on the Yaesu that I couldn't see on the ICOM's display. Now, you may not be able to tell it from the video, but the ICOM screen is contrastier. It is punchier from black to white and just has more contrast. Now, there have been some issues on certain ones of some burn-in problems if you leave the screen on all the time. And ICOM, I think, is replacing these screens free of charge, even out of warranty. So that's not an issue. In fact,
esses limites falam de limites que você tem por bandas, né? Tem bandas que você pode operar com 1 watt só. Pô, mas 1 watt só é 2.200 metros. Tá? 2.200 metros, potência máxima 100 watts. Tá bom? Qual é a frequência? Tá aqui, ó. Deixa lá na banda de 2.200 metros, eu já te falo. Tá aqui, ó. De 2.200 metros, frequência de 135,7 a 137,8 kHz, ok? Então, faixa de 2.200 metros, vai ter lá 1 watt, tá bom? Um sim, tá bom? Outro limite de potência, 630 metros também, 472 kHz, 5 watts. Outra banda de 60 metros, também, né? Faixa de 60 metros, 5.351,5 kHz, somente 25 watts. Tá? Então, 2.200 metros, 1 watt, 630 metros, 5 watts, 60 metros, 25 watts. Então, tem limites também, né? Quando a transmissão via satélite, algumas frequências têm limites de potência, especificamente essas 3 aqui, né, que eu falei, tem essas respectivas potências, 1 watt, 5 watts, 25 watts, ok? 25 watts, e assim por diante. Tá? Saindo desses limites de potências por banda, né, é a potência da classe do radioamador, ok? Radioamador classe C, né, potência máxima para ele 100 watts. Como o radioamador classe C pode fazer operação remota, né, operação automática, ou as conexões pela internet, o interface, internet das coisas, tá no limite para o radioamador classe C, ok? Então, para ele não vai ter problema. Agora, para um radioamador classe B, ou para um radioamador classe A, né, que poderiam operar com mais potência, de toda forma vai estar limitado nos 100 watts, ok? Então, o artigo 6º limita o radioamador classe B e o radioamador classe A a não usar mais de 100 watts nessas operações remotas, ok? Quem achava, né, poderia estar no Japão, ou na China, ou no Canadá, ou na Espanha, né, e falar aqui do Brasil, qualquer lugar do mundo, e jogar linear em cima, não pode, olha lá. Tem um limite aqui pela lei, hein? 100 watts, tá bom? Bom, vamos em frente. O parágrafo único fala o seguinte: considera-se estação automática aquela que prescinde da presença do titular ou da conexão remota com ele para o seu funcionamento. Então, normalmente você vai ter uma estação com operação ou conexão remota, né, pela internet, com interface, com esse objetivo, né, para você usar a estação de longe. Então, você pode até estar, né, vez ou outra na estação, olha lá, né, aquela que prescinde da presença do titular, ou não, né, ou de longe ele fala com ela, ou com conexão remota, ok? Para o seu funcionamento. Então, você pode estar na estação, pode não estar na estação, né, com uma conexão remota, mas nesse caso a potência, né, fica limitada aos 100 watts, ok? Então, o artigo 6º, resolução 697/2018, vai te dar esse limite também para operação remota. Você está na estação e pode usar algumas bandas de frequência na sua limitação por conta de classe, maravilha. Vai fazer conexão remota ou operação à distância, com conexão pela internet, usando interface ou internet das coisas, 100 watts, tá bom? Esse é o limite. Tranquilo? Então tá aí. Hoje, nosso papo aqui foi só o artigo 6º e só essa possibilidade. Bom, deixa eu dar bom.
Bom, agora são 5 horas, 53 minutos. E a gente lembra os amigos que em setembro teremos encontro de radioamadores em Capela do Alto, ok? Lembrando, todos os amigos convidados. Quem é radioamador, quem é PX, quem é coruja, quem pretende ser radioamador, dexistas, enfim. Todo mundo convidado, ok? Vai ser no segundo domingo de setembro, Capela do Alto. Tá? Normalmente é churrasco, tem também aquela feirinha de eletroca. O pessoal leva rádios, fontes lineares, antenas e um monte de coisa. Medidor de estacionário, acoplador, né? E tem aquela feirinha eletroca, tá bom? E mais para frente eu passo aí detalhes, ok? Como que vai ser o churrasco, né? Como cada amigo vai participar, tá bom? Mas deixa aí anotado, ok? Segundo domingo de setembro, encontro de radioamadores, Capela do Alto. Capela do Alto dá uns 130 quilômetros de São Paulo, ok? Não é muito longe, não. Tranquilo? E vamos lá. Oportunidade aos amigos com um bom dia.
Design artifact. Now, does this really matter? To me, no, because the truth is they should have limited it to 5 kilohertz minimum, and they didn't. They let you go down below that. Now, both displays are susceptible to static crashes and large deviations due to noise pops. As well, their AGCs can be pumped down and take a little time to recover from large static crashes, which is common for SDRs at this point. Got the sensitivity up a little bit here, and you can see how it's very good at displaying these static crashes. Want some really phenomenal lightning graphics? Well, go to 3D mode. It captures it all. Neither radio memorizes their level or reference setting with the band. We know 20 meters in the day isn't like 40 meters at night. QSD to ICOM and Yaesu. Let's check these receivers out. So purely by the numbers, the Yaesu seems to win. But do these numbers actually translate into a usable difference for you in real-world conditions? Now, prime frequency synthesis, coming up with your prime clean clock, is very important in these types of radios. Both use high-quality TCXOs with low phase noise and low jitter, so they're very good. The Yaesu uses a 400 megahertz direct digital synthesizer because it has a mixer and LO, and it needs to have an injection signal there and other signals. Now, it's interesting to note that Yaesu uses an 18-bit receive A to D chip and a 16-bit D to A in their transmitter chain on the 101D, as where ICOM in the 7610 uses a 16-bit receive A to D and a 14-bit D to A in their transmit chain. But the quality and speed of that IC matter. Yaesu, because of their mixer design, gets to use an audio-grade 18-bit IC, as ICOM has to use an industrial-grade 16-bit IC, which costs way, way more money. The net effect is that performance is very similar. So let's listen and compare the receivers. Have a little bit of fun here.
Model AULA tower. It's mounted on a 12-foot trailer. It is up for bid. It's up for auction on the internet. I'm pretty much done. I'm exhausted, fatigued, and all that. So I'm going to say 7 threes. Put on my boots and go looking for the damn electric fence. So I'll see y'all. A lot of stuff is stored, and I didn't know they'd gotten into that. All I could do is I heard them banging on the car, you know, and I knew. So I went over yesterday and to the house where the boy's staying. The police did, and you know what they said. The boy said, "Oh no, we didn't do any of that stuff." I'm sure that's what they said. So the police can't do it.
To adjust the general bandpass filter on the 101D, you just are turning a knob, and it goes from 4 kilohertz all the way down to 300 hertz. On the 7610, for receive filter adjustments, we have a filter button over here, and it basically selects between 3 presets that you can have set up. If you hold it down, each of these presets, the 1, 2, 3 filters, is adjustable separately, and then you can change, of course, the shape of the filter, sharp and soft, and the bandwidth definitions, and then it has it in these 3 presets that are quickly attainable through just pressing this button here. 1, 2, 3, it cycles through them. And now the magic DNR, digital noise reduction.
Alpha Alpha 1 Lima Yankee AI4JU. Well, it sounds like you've got some really nice projects. There's a portable station I take sometimes, depending where I go. 60-foot piece of wire with a 10-to-1 Ballum, and it works pretty well with an automatic tuner. It's a pretty basic one, and it tunes from 80 all the way up to 10 meters. More times down the electricity bill. And by the way, a lot of people thought I was in electronics, etc. I said I was a glorified joiner. That's the ultimate in woodworking and that, etc. I won't go too much until next time there, but had a lot of help from a lot of people there over the years. Look forward to working you again there, and say hi to the dogs before they take the pants out the back of the postman.
So my observation is that the 101's DNR is more effective, but even a setting of 1 is very strong. It uses 15 selectable presets or algorithms, and it does cause a little distortion at all settings, especially on very low signals. Now, the 7610 DNR is totally clean and linearly adjustable via a knob. Its effect is very subtle, and sometimes you can even forget that you have a little bit of it on. On the ICOM, it is possible to actually adjust your attenuation levels. So if you hold your finger on here, you have 3 slots, 6, 12, and 18 are defaults, I believe. But you can then adjust each one of those individually. So I could say, take the 18 dB and decide, I want to make that 45 dB. So these are 3 independently adjustable attenuation slots. Let's take a look at the notch filters. Now, a good test of the automatic notch filter or the IF notch filter, which is manually adjustable, is to use WWV and just go ahead and go into sideband mode, offset tune from it a little bit, and it creates a nice heterodyne. And they also modulate it with an audio tone, which means it produces a couple of extra tones for most of the minute. So let's take a look. Now, there's the DNF, or automatic multiple tone killer. There's the IF notch, which is tunable. But it doesn't kill all of the carriers like the DNF. On the ICOM, we'll show you how the automatic and manual notches work. Noise blankers. Here's an odd one on the FTDX101D. There's no way to vary the receive bandwidth in AM mode. It's fixed at 9 kilohertz, and even the IF shift is defeated. On the 7610, they give you full control of receive bandwidth as well as IF shift in the AM mode. This may change with a firmware revision, but as for now, this is what we have. Let's take a look at the secret weapons here, Digicel versus VC Tune. Now, these are different approaches to the same end, keeping large off-frequency signals from entering the receive chain. Now, I can show you a bunch of graphs and charts, but basically these are two different approaches to keeping large off-frequency signals out of your radio. The ICOM unit is a switch capacitor inductor affair, and it actually has two complete units in the ICOM 7610. They track around as you tune. The Yaesu uses a quite novel approach. It is actually a belt-driven, from a stepper motor, capacitor that linearly tracks you around as you tune and claims a 70 dB rejection of out-of-passband signals. The Digicel on the 7610 being a relay switched capacitor inductor bandpass filter, you do hear some little switching noise about every 20 kilohertz as you tune across the band. It also does allow you to tune across the center of the passband, like the VC tune, but the notch is not quite as deep and narrow. So even if you're off to the left or right fully, I haven't found it to be very useful in knocking out interfering signals to the sides of the center of the passband. Now let's take a look at the VC tune on the Yaesu. Notice the little box to the right of the power meter. Well, that's where you have the zoom-in view of the actual passband, and you're going to see the VC tune across that little area. Now I've got a lot of band noise on here. What I'm going to do is turn on the VC tune and tune it off to the left. You'll see that the signal does reduce, but also the band noise just backs right off.
Of years, he had the 7300 hooked up with the expert amp, a very similar situation I have. Now he has the 7610, so he sold his 7300 and has the 7610 on the ship as well as the expert, and of course he uses a double bazooka.
Now, of course, just lowering the or kicking in attenuation can cause a similar effect, lowering the main signal and lowering the background noise. But VC Tune does it a little bit better. It attenuates the desired signal just a little bit less. So let's take a look at the built-in decoders. Note that the ICOM does not have a CWA decoder, but it does have the RTTY and PSK31. The FTDX101 Delta also has PSK decode, but due to the abjectly horrible band conditions we're experiencing right now, I just don't have any signals right there. But over about S2 or S3, it gets a reliable copy. When the signals are down below S2-ish and into the noise, it does not decode a PSK signal well. On the 7610, the PSK decode screen is, well, more elaborate. Both radios have macros, allow you to plug in a keyboard and use it, and have some of the conveniences of the outboard PC-based programs. The tuning area on this PSK mode right here, decode mode, is quite nice. And it's also showing some other information. Both of them have a threshold control where you can cut out the junk gibberish text, and not decode under a certain signal noise level. But just the way that this is implemented is a little more elaborate and gives you more control in the PSK mode. I did want to mention something that is a slight difference in the way that these radios implement their RF gain controls. On the ICOM, you are allowed to set it as RF gain / squelch, such that as you turn it up, the first half is your RF gain, and then it kicks in a squelch. And why is this useful? Well, on band B, sometimes I listen to 6-meter simplex 52525, and I've got the squelch turned up on it on the other control, on the sub here. But on the main, I want to have an RF gain control because I am using single sideband. And these are not separatable on either of the radios, but on the Yaesu, it does not have an RF gain / squelch option such that you have RF gain or squelch. That means that I can't really listen to 6 meters on the B band in FM with the squelch turned up and still have an RF gain on the prime band in sideband. My conclusion is that the APF on the 7610 is slightly better on CW, slightly cleaner. The DNR, though, is much better on the 101D, but always adds a little bit of distortion in CW and SSB, and it's heavy-handed, doesn't have any low settings. The 7610 DNR is very clean, but not quite as effective, and neither radio could pull out a weak signal that the other one couldn't hear. On ultimate selectivity, the 101D was ever so slightly better at rejecting huge signals right next to you. But most times, you're going to be the victim of IMD products from poor transmitters nearby. And this issue, neither and no radio can handle. And now for the transmitters. Now, both transmitters claim very high quality transmit specs as far as IMD and general performance, and they're both very similar and sound similar on the air. But the only difference would be on the 101 MP, because these finals are running higher voltage, and by theoretical design, they're capable of a much cleaner transmit signal. Now, the transmit output power on both of these SDRs I find to be somewhat lower than some of the older traditional rigs. We're going to look at an old Drake W4 meter here, of course not calibrated to NIST standards, but just as a relative reading. Alpha Bravo 5 November AB5N, Hot Springs, Arkansas, 12345 4321. 12345, ICOM 7610 12. There we go, all the way up to 100 watts with a whistle, but under average conditions with the ALC correct. There's your average power output, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 2. And now just for grins, just to compare, I'm throwing in a 991 Alpha here, a non-STR radio. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1, Alpha Bravo 5, November. On the 101D, there is control of the input mic audio level and the output, sort of putting a limiter on the output. And that's called the AMC, automatic mic control, whatever they call it. And so initially when you set up the radio, this control on the top right is used to adjust the AMC, or the, I would call it a limiter on the output of the modulation level from the mic. After you're done setting that as per the manual, you change it over to the processor, and then this becomes the processor control. Now, as where the ICOM only has bass and treble controls for the different transmit modes, the Yaesu provides 6 parametric equalizer adjustments, 3 for without the compressor on and 3 for with the compressor on. And this results in a really nice versatility and a really excellent transmit sound. Both of these radios are much more similar on their transmit side, and both use direct SDR generation of that transmit signal. The 101D uses a 16-bit D to A, the 7610 uses a 14-bit D to A, but then there's clock speed and everything else. And both of the radios land up having a fairly clean transmit signal and very similar on-the-air sound. So bottom line, my feelings. The FTDX 101D is currently $800 more than the 7610, which has flattened out in its price curve at around $3,000. I expect that 101 to come down over the next year, be about $3,300, $3,400 at Dayton Xenia 2020. I do expect it to still stay $200, $300 more than the ICOM. It's a pretty complex radio. So that's about the price points we're looking at. Fun factor, bottom line fun factor, I really like the way the 7610 flies across the band. You spin that dial, it's a little lighter than the one on the 101, and it just flies across the band. And then that progressive tuning that ICOM has, you fly across and then you zone in, and all of a sudden you're back down to a more fine tuning ratio. And that really is a strong thing as far as your interface with the radio. The Yaesu gets you around as per normal, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I personally like the 2D spectral display on the ICOM better because I'm old school. I like the green. I like that sort of green spectrum analyzer look. And the averaging, without having averaging, Yaesu's displays are at a disadvantage, and this may occur. I'd give it a 50-50 chance that Yaesu will implement averaging in their 2D and 3D displays in a firmware update, but there's no guarantee of that. So the 101's a little less frequency agile, but not any great concern there. The 101 has greater QRM fighting features.